Hi, everyone. My name's Helena. I will be your MC for the session. The next talk is about GenAI, a new renaissance in product development, very interesting topic. Our speaker is Emerson Taymor. He's a serial entrepreneur, investor, and currently the SVP of design at InfoBeans, as well as the creator of multiple hospitality brands in the New York City. He co-founded a digital product studio called Philosophy, where he worked with enterprise executives and startup founders to launch over 300 digital products before it was acquired by InfoBeam in 2019. Join me in welcoming our speaker, Emerson Taymor.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. As she said, I'm up from New York City. So I'm using the Renaissance as a backdrop of this talk for two reasons. The first is that the Renaissance was famously known as a period of great humanism. And today, a lot of people are kind of worried that computers are going to run the world. We're just going to be these measly, humans collecting our stimulus check and getting these protein bars. And I really reject that. I really believe that it's our job as technologists to build that future, build that better future, and I think that AI can be there. And then the second reason is that the AI was obviously a period of tremendous growth in terms of culture, in terms of economic power, and I also believe that's true for AI. So a little bit about our path today. I consider myself an explorer. I'm going to start off by maybe just laying the groundwork in terms of why I think generative AI is transformative. I'm then going to talk about different use cases for using it with global teams, with user research, and then lastly, throughout the product development process. And throughout the way, I'll call out tools and as well as caveats and kind of pitfalls to watch out for as we look at this journey. A little bit about me. I got the background. This portrait by Donatello of me, a little more handsome probably than I am, but at least captures my luscious locks. You can use the QR code for my LinkedIn. I am an explorer. I'm a business and the world. I really love to travel. I love to check things out. As I've said, I'm an entrepreneur. I've built a number of companies. I started a company called Philosophy in college. I worked on that for 11 years. We sold to a company called InfoBeans in 2019, where I now lead the design and innovation practice. And InfoBeans is a global team of makers that really help companies go from idea to impact as quickly as possible, everything from design, building the technology. And we do a lot of work with AI, and especially how do you build trust with AI products. I think the keynote earlier today was really interesting, kind of trustworthy AI, which is something I'm passionate about. So for me, this is an exploration. I think, as we all know, all these tools are moving very quickly. Things are happening very quickly, so things might change. Literally tomorrow. So let's just explore. I also am pretty big on, in my talks, including some random bits of action. There's a lot of science that randomness helps us gel different ideas together and different perspectives, so it's very helpful for innovation. So throughout this talk, I have asked ChatGPT to come up with a bunch of random activities that will take 3 to 5 seconds each. I then asked ChatGPT to pick random locations in my slides to drop them in, so I don't even know where they're really going to pop up. You will see them flash up, or we'll both see them flash up with large kind of salmon-colored backdrop. We'll do a practice round on the next slide. There's only 4 of them, so we'll have some fun throughout and hopefully keep you on your toes. So here's an example of one, so without further ado, clap 3 times. Awesome, thank you. So if you see this, we'll just jump into action, we'll take a break, and then we'll come back. So just to lay the groundwork, I mean, obviously we're at the Toronto Machine Learning Summit, so I think a lot of us do understand that generative AI can have a lot of power. This was a statistic from a paper in 2023 called GPTs or GPTs. And it's very interesting because in 2023, obviously these were before some of the more recent models, but a group of researchers at Cornell University found that a large number of tasks would be impacted by these LLMs, and they actually saw that about 50% of workers would have 50% of their tasks completely handled by LLMs. So I think just seeing that this was a year or so ago, newer models have come out, they're continuing to get better. We're going to see some impact. But again, not 100% of tasks, but a good chunk of tasks. There's also been this very famous study I'm sure you've seen with Harvard Business School and BCG, and it was showing that their consultants, obviously elite knowledge workers, were made more productive with AI and GPT. But I think what was most interesting about this was that it actually shifted up the lower performers or the more junior employees more than the higher performers, which checks out. So I think we start to see this trend of how do you have junior employees, how do you have younger employees entering the workforce that actually can get more of a lift, and we can start to level the playing field a little bit, which is really interesting. And we'll also have a risk associated with that a little bit later. If you don't know, Jacob Nielsen is really considered one of the kings of usability, one of the big pushers of it with the Nielsen-Norman group. He's been doing a lot of research and discussion recently on AI-supported UX work. He had this quote, and I like to think, when you think about that, the labor productivity growth in the US is 1.4%. In the EU, it's 0.8%. We're talking about some very significant numbers in terms of growth, in terms of labor productivity that could make a really big impact in the world in a very positive way. Oh, let's go quickly. I'm sorry for people on their phones, but we'll have to get up, a little bit of fun, stretch your arms, and then sit back down and hopefully get a good stretch in. And the last thing I'll level set is that Sam Altman on a podcast, which I really liked, this was one of his definitions of AGI, was a median human with all the knowledge. And I like that. And my definition today of LLMs, not from a technical perspective, but more of how we end up using these, is an autocompleter with that same knowledge, but an important caveat. But it acts very confident in the answers. And I think we've seen this as kind of the LLMs, ChatGPT, as being these professional bullshitters to an extent. So with that, laying the foundation, let's hop in. I'm going to talk about these three main areas. Before COVID, we really saw the world entering a period of tremendous globalization. And then we've now had remote work kind of enter the fold. And so technology teams in particular, are working with more and more teams from all over the globe. With InfoBeans, the majority of our team is in India, and so I've been working with them as well as our US team to answer the question, how can GenAI break down barriers and start to really do us our best work? So I've found 3 use cases for this, or there's more, but these are our 3 great use cases. One is around localizing grammar, the second is around topic and getting up to speed on a topic quickly, and then the last is with storytelling. So localizing grammar, there's biases all around us, and I think that's the reality of the world that we live in today. As someone, I do a lot of business. I've done a lot of business in the UK. Obviously, we have a different style of English in America than they do in the UK. And then same thing with India, right? So how do you kind of tweak these things? And I do see that one thing, it's simple, but actually makes a very big impact, is that ChatGPT and other LLMs can really localize grammar. They can simplify things. They can tighten words up. And so I've encouraged our teams, how can you edit emails, proposals, decks by using ChatGPT? And even for me, I'm often verbose, use a lot of colloquial words in my emails, so I'll use AI to kind of tighten up my emails. Oh, quick one. High five the person next to you. I'll give you all an air high five. Next, getting up to speed on a topic quickly. Luckily for us, we don't need to be like Da Vinci. We don't need to go down to the morgue and collect human bodies to learn about a topic like he did for learning about the human body. But I do think that these are very great. As consultants in my role, a lot of our job is to get up to speed on a topic very quickly, to go into a new industry, a new market, and you don't always have the benefit of a lot of time to get up on that. And these, I would say, LLMs are really good at this. I think, for example, a little while ago, I used Perplexity as well as ChatGPT to learn about some of the differences between media monetization strategies in the US versus Asia. And just last week, I was using this very cool tool you may have seen, Global Explorer, to help me learn about visualizations in the semiconductor industry. So I think these are some tools. There's a lot more that exist out there, but it's very valuable in terms of consuming a lot of knowledge and then really paring that down into a more concise way. And then lastly, improving storytelling. As product people, but really technologists, anyone, a lot of our job is actually packaging up the hard work that we do, building software, building things, and making it in a way that's consumable to other groups. That might be end users, that might be investors, that might be other stakeholders within the business. And I don't think that your LLMs are going to produce a amazing novel for you. But what they can do is help you kind of package and tweak things up. And also really interesting is how you can actually tweak things based on the audience that you're trying to go to. How you tell that story to the CEO is maybe is different. You're focused on vision versus the CFO, where it's very focused on cost, versus the COO, which is operations. And then maybe you go down to kind of line product managers or different people. And so think about how you can start to plug in your things and get different perspectives to use within your storytelling. So this is all great, but again, I think there are some things to think about here. One big one is to not necessarily, you'll see in a lot of my examples, it's more about tweaking things, repackaging things up, as opposed to a one-shot prompt to get the final output. Again, if we go back to that original definition, I think one thing that I see, especially with senior practitioners, is they might plug something into ChatGPT, they get something back, they review it, and at first it's like, okay, this sounds good, but then they review it and like, this is pretty mid, actually. And by definition, it is average. It is the kind of average of the internet. So one thing I heard from a friend who helps lead product in Google AI is, let's say you're writing a blog post, put it into ChatGPT, get that post back, but then remove everything and write everything that wasn't in that blog post itself. So think about how you can use it in these different perspectives. And then lastly, how can you use it as a thought partner? How can you have a conversation? Ask more, cut it, and use that expert that you are to tweak things and edit things. And those are some things I would look at within it. There's really an epidemic these days that product people and people, companies at large, don't talk to the end users. And we'll get into synthetic users in a little bit. But I think this is a problem. But I do think that AI can help. Oh, sorry. Shake your hands like you're shaking off water. But I do think that AI can help with user research, help our teams talk to more people, talk to more people more effectively. So three areas I'll call out: writing research scripts, visualizing personas, and then tooling for synthesis itself. ChatGPT is actually going to be a pretty useful guide to generate questions, fill out your user interview scripts, and come up with more ideas around things. I like to think of it as assembling almost the perfect hamburger. So first, you would maybe ask it for the outline of what's going to be the type of hamburger I'm creating. Am I going to include condiments? Am I going to include cheese on it? And then for each of those areas, you're going to focus on what's that recipe for the individual thing. For example, how might I create the right buns? Maybe I want to get background information on my user. What are questions for that? And I always ask for more questions that I get, and then I parse through it and go down. And then you kind of go step by step through that process. And then the last thing you can look at is, again, asking the follow-ups, is maybe you have a list of hypotheses that you want to validate or learn more about. Put those into the system, and then have ChatGPT generate a list of open-ended questions for you. A lot of our work is also, we need to empathize with the end user of who we're working for or with. During the Renaissance, the artists created this concept of linear perspective, which helped them visualize scenes and figures in more realistic ways. Likewise, with DALL-E, with Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, we can create more lifelike representations of our persona images so we can empathize with those people more effectively. And it doesn't just stop with the visuals. We can also use this to also flesh out areas of our personas, our proto-personas that are a little bit weaker. For example, pain points, motivations, and how that would play out. And then you can also get more ideas for how you can maybe validate that with further research moving on. We've actually developed a tool I'll share in a little bit with InfoBeans that will help you generate proto-personas for any customer segment very, very quickly. Within user research synthesis, it's good for kind of high-level takeaways, getting sentiment analysis, getting kind of the directional area. There's a lot of tools that also focus on this beyond the basic LLMs. So I think one tool that's very popular these days is Dovetail. Another which I like is Notably, which is kind of a mix of transcription, tagging, user research notes and insights in kind of a fig jam or Miro format. And then what really is really interesting about it and powerful is they have a whole library of battle-tested AI prompts that will help kind of synthesize, give you different perspectives to look at. The thing to note here is that, again, research is often done. Great researchers are going to find things lurking in the corner, so don't necessarily just assume that you're going to pump something in and get that back. These LLMs are going to be a little more basic. And then this is a great free tool from Google, Notebook LLM, which what's cool about it is you upload your notes or your transcriptions, and then you can ask questions. And then like Perplexity, you're going to get citations back for the answers. Like Google will share how they came up with that with the citations. And then also like Perplexity, it will propose other questions that you could ask that might be helpful. So a really cool tool and free to use. Machines, people are not machines at the end of the day. And so I do think there's a real risk that AI is going to have people not talk to users and going to focus too much on synthetic users. I do think there's probably a place for synthetic user research and for directional awareness on things. But at the end of the day, humans are notoriously unpredictable and robots are notoriously predictable. So if you're trying to design a product, you're not going to want to design it for the average human at the end of the day, or because it's going to just be wrong. People don't come in percentages. So I think we have to think about how do we, again, use AI to help us go faster in other elements of the user research process, but it should not be a substitute for actually talking with humans, with people at the end of the day. And again, remember that good researchers are going to find things lurking in the edges. So unlock them by giving them tools to accelerate what they do, but don't think you're just going to be able to get rid of them. And lastly, within this front, there's been some studies done that if you just upload a screenshot into these more general GPT tools and even probably the broader tools, it's not going to perform very well. They actually have a lot of issues in terms of flagging things that are correct as incorrect, which ends up meaning your teams are going to spend a lot of time wasted. I'm going to quickly just walk through some tools that I think are useful in the product development process. Like the Renaissance, lots of new techniques and approaches came to life that gave a lot of new ways of creating more magical art. Again, we created this. It's free at InfoBeans, Exponent.ai. And it's a tool that helps you get to the root cause, generate new ideas for businesses with creative ideation, and then preparing a business case. We're continuing to build new tools to it. Chat PRD, and there's a bunch of other tools. PRD AI by one of our clients, Crabotics, does a really good job of quickly developing PRDs and user stories, and then also thinking about how do you connect that to existing work in the code base. I think it's our last one. Wave to someone across the room. Pricing has long been a problem for product managers, a tough thing. Peak AI is focused explicitly on improving pricing. Zeta.io, the product round trip, going from customer discovery all the way through release notes, and then impact it and kind of measuring that impact all the way back. So this is one of my favorite tools for that end-to-end. For product people in general, there's a lot of busy work that we have to do, rote tasks, and I think AI is, again, really powerful for this. There's obviously Zapier, Bardeen, Get Magical, and Kadoa AI are both focused on these rote tasks and improving that more seamlessly. And then, of course, the king, the trendsetter, ChatGPT, create workshop agendas, help with your UX copy, your release notes. There's all sorts of things that you can use within that. But again, let's be careful not to forget our critical thinking skills, that human side of things. As we showed, junior people do have the ability to really gain a lot of skills from these tools, but the flip side of that is that they might not really be able to have the expertise to know where are the hallucinations, where are the things that are incorrect. And ultimately, let's really think about building unique products that make us humans unique. So you may have seen this graphic. This was a great thing within Sequoia's Ascent conference earlier this year. AI has been around since the 1980s. So why now? Why all this hype? But I think what you start to see is that it's come up. There's been all these advances with the processing power of chips. And then now we have so much more data available that all these things start to layer up. That starts to bring us to this point where we are today. And throughout that time period, we've also become much more productive as a society. This graphic shows the number of workers needed to generate $1 million of income. That's gone down a lot. And I think it's not unfathomable that in a couple years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to have billion-dollar companies that are run by only a handful of people. So that productivity, I think, has a tremendous amount of opportunity for us. We've looked, and there's lots of other ways that we can start to use GenAI, but I've tried to call out some specific examples within global teams. user research, and product development process. Again, let's think about these as really a co-pilot, as ways to help us accelerate what we're doing, but not the end-all be-all in these one-shot prompts. And like the workshops of the Bottega workshops of the Renaissance, let's use these conferences, our communities, to meet other people, trade ideas, explore the opportunities, explore the pitfalls, and where the challenges are. And let's also think about how we as humans can create this amazing future for ourselves. We're technologists. It's our really job to push forward. I think it's going to have a big impact on us, on the ability for us to unlock more meaningful work. I don't like to just copy things from spreadsheets and move them around. As a human, I know a lot of people, customer support agents, they don't love to just copy things from a document and paste them back. So how can AI start to propel us to that next level? And I think it's our job as technologists in this room, at these conferences, to push that vision forward. So the last thing I want to leave you with is that I just released this playbook. So this is it's free. This is the kind of QR code to download it. It goes through the 7 stages of the product development process, from ideation, market research, requirements gathering, prototyping, development, and go-to-market. And then each of those areas, I call out 3 of the highest leverage areas for AI, a bunch of tooling that you can use in those areas, what I think the impact is going to be, and then I call out a whole bunch more of other areas where I think AI can augment. So check it out. And also, as I said before, I'm learning, I'm exploring this stuff. So get in touch with me. I'd love to learn more from all of you and see where we can take this. So thanks for having me today.
Anyone have questions? Going once? Going twice? Okay, there's one there.
How are you guys using? Sorry, thank you. How are you guys using AI to maybe fasten up the design process, like creating mock-ups or prototypes? Is there some tools that you use for that?
Yeah, so I'm very excited about it. Figma just released their kind of new AI products at their conference a week or so ago. What we're using it a lot for is a few areas. One is like mood boarding in the kind of early phases of understanding kind of different visual directions and getting different perspectives. Also, using tools, I don't know if you've seen like VO by Versal, for example, but using it as a way to kind of just quickly get a bunch of ideas out on the table and then parse that back. I think what's cool about what Figma just announced is some of the more, again, rote tasks that they're going to help cleaning up layers, coming up with more realistic product copy, extending and kind of duplicating if you want to fill up a chart with different looking copy. It's going to do that. And of course they have the tools for generating layouts and whatnot, which we'll see about. Other areas, and then we have played a little bit with like UI Izzard, which just was sold to Miro, which is a tool for going from like text to layout, and Figma kind of just copied a lot of that. But I do think there are some other tools out there which I have in that book. But yeah, it's been a lot of just like exploring different directions and then parsing it back, and then some smaller things within. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you all.